Let's get started, shall we? Okay, I'm just going to kind of review notes. Okay, right. So we're going to talk about philosophy itself. All right. When you first take an introductory philosophy course, they're really intentionally vague about a lot of things. Like they don't really want to even define what philosophy is. Some people even try to claim that philosophy can't be defined. Well, we're going to do our best. Okay. First of all, we want to know, well, what is philosophy? Okay, well, first of all, let's start with what is a philosopher? Okay, and I would suggest what a philosopher is a human being. Okay, a human being and philosopher, these are synonyms to me. Okay, quite frankly, most human beings are closer to animals than they are being thinking human beings, beings capable of rational thought. Okay, most people only have a modicum of what we would call reason. All right, so philosopher sounds like this grand title, and it's so important, and it is. It is important. But let's can the BS, shall we? Okay, it basically just means someone who knows how to think. Okay, someone who knows how to use their mind. Okay, on the highest levels possible. Okay. All right. Now, of course, people like to counter these definitions that we propose. Like, say, when really they're perfectly valid definitions. For example, say we say philosophy involves seeking truth. Okay. Well, someone would say, well, medical science, that's about seeking truth. Well, yeah, and it's a science. Okay. You can't have science without philosophy. Okay. Where And it's not so much that philosophy is even necessarily more general, but it's science deals with trying to figure out how everything works, right? The nuts and bolts of everything. Okay. So when you get into physics and metaphysics, these two tend to merge. They kind of congeal into one and stuff. Sometimes they can be the same topic. It all depends. Because metaphysics, all that means is reality, the study of what is real, the study of reality, what is real. Right? Well, what does physics study? Well, it studies how stuff that's real works, basically. All right? Its fundamental natures. Psychology, that's another one. Okay? And I'm going to get back to that one because that one's really important. It's another one of those that just weaves in and out of philosophy. Okay? So you say, well, science, like biology, that's about seeking truth. We don't call that philosophy. Well, no, duh. But oftentimes philosophers, when they don't seem to understand scientists, once they don't seem to understand the concept of science, when they seem to have thrown empiricism out the window, that's where oftentimes philosophers hate doing this, I've found, generally speaking. They have to lecture the scientist. And of course the supposed scientist, and of course the supposed scientist will get all PO'd. You're like, oh, I don't appreciate being lectured about science from a philosopher. Well, you should, okay? Because without philosophy, science has no bones, okay? It cannot stand. It becomes a puddle of mush, okay? If science was a person, philosophy would be the bones of that person, especially empiricism, right? And other similar schools of philosophy, right? That's what comprises the bones. The whole scientific method, and there's several different versions of that, is a philosophy or a philosophical construct, really. Okay? And yes, there's several different ones, and no one's necessarily more valid than the other. It depends on what you're applying that to, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent. See. But yeah, so you could define philosophy as seeking truth. Okay, you could do that, and I think that's perfectly valid. And I get peeved when people try to dispute that and try to say, oh, philosophy can't be defined. Look, I just call it thinking, folks. Okay? Like, if you're not thinking on the same level as that of a philosopher, then you're not really thinking at all. Okay, you're just a bundle of pre-programmed beliefs and stuff. That's it, right? And your thought forms are all just kind of pre-programmed and conditioned into you. Okay, and if you made it through this far through this video, I'd say you're closer to being a real human being, which we could call a philosopher, than an animal. But let make no mistake about it, most of the people out there are more animal than anything else. Okay, they're animals that can talk, and if they're lucky, tie their shoes and drive heavy equipment. Okay, but still essentially animals, because their thought process really isn't much more sophisticated than that of a rodent. Okay, and see how insulting I'm being? Look, I'm not the first person to say things like this, okay? It's like, it's a pretty common thing. Even when you go back as far as Plato, when people would come up to him and ask him about, well, what happens after we die? And what's the nature of the gods or whatever? He would tell him, he'd be like, look, you don't even know how to be a man yet, or a woman if you prefer. Why are you worried about the gods? You know, to work on being a human being first. All right, and then we'll worry about the gods. Okay, Nietzsche said something similar, or something along those same lines. Yeah, he called himself the last philosopher, or did he call himself the last man? Well, he said both. He said, "I'm the last philosopher." Well, what do I mean by that? And he said that he was the last man. Okay, so philosophers, I'm not the first philosopher to come along and define philosophy or a philosopher as being just a human being. A human being that's capable of rational thought. Okay, not just an animal, right, that knows how to turn on a television, you know, and receive your daily regimen of brainwashing, right? Oh, and so hopefully by defining what a philosopher is, we've kind of gotten a better idea what philosophy is, right? I like to just say it's thought. You know, people dispute this saying, well, it's not thought, it's higher forms of thought or the seeking of virtue, and that's fine. That's fine. And we can have that kind of debate all day long, but now you know basically how I define it. So when I call myself a philosopher, you know, I'm basically just saying I'm a human being. And what I mean by that is that I'm still an animal, but I'm one that actually knows how to think. Okay, I'm not just an animal, and I'm certainly not just a clever animal that knows how to tie my shoes and maybe read a Harry Potter novel. Okay? No, I'm an actual human being that can think. That's what I mean when I call myself a philosopher. When I talk about philosophy, I'm talking about thought. Okay? Really in general. What else? Okay, we're going to get into psychology a little bit here in a minute. Right, questions, all these questions. Okay, before I get on to the next question, like when you take an introductory philosophy course, read an introductory philosophy book, one of the first things they do is make this statement that in philosophy the questions are more important than the answers. They say it's the one, what do they say? The one discipline or the one subject where the questions are actually more important than the answers. Well, see, this is where I can totally justify me calling myself a philosopher because, you know, even as I'm talking about it, I'm realizing how bogus that is. You know, in a way, it's definitely true, and I'm going to get to that. But you know, this whole thing is that philosophy is somehow different than the other disciplines or whatever, because that doesn't make any sense to me. Like if you don't know the right questions to ask, even if it's a science, like let's just put philosophy out of the way for a minute on anything, like say a science. If you don't know the right questions to ask, then how can you say that that being able to formulate the question, that the question's not somehow more important than the answer? Of course it is. Of course it is, because you have to have the question first before you can come up with the answer. Right? I mean, to me, that would make the answer subservient to the question. Okay, but see what I'm doing now? This is what you call thinking, folks. Okay, and I just did it just now without even meaning to. Okay, I just started thinking about this like they do. They say it's unlike other subjects in that way. No, it's the exact same as other subjects in that way, okay? Yes, the questions are more important than the answers, all right? And I don't blame philosophy professors for not just telling people like what I did just now, because the idea is to try to get you thinking about it. And that's just one illustration of where the questions are more important than the answers, okay? And I'm going to let you figure out the rest, okay? It's going to take time. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take an open mind. And eventually, you'll probably just work out. It'll just come to you one day. Be like, oh, that's another one of those reasons why they say that in philosophy, the questions are more important than the answers, okay? Because there are more than one. Like sometimes it's important just to have the discussion, and there is no definitive right or wrong answer, okay? But it's still important to have that discussion, especially when you get into things like politics. All right. Now, we're going to conclude this by talking about what philosophy can do for you and do for society in general, okay? And the sad part about this is more a conversation of what it can't do, oftentimes. This is another place where when you take a philosophy class or read a philosophy textbook, they really don't tell you what the benefits of philosophy are, really. They ask you. And then when you give them an answer, they dispute it. You know, whatever that answer is, like, well, you can use it to make money. No. You can use it to pick up chicks. No, not necessarily, no. Yeah, it can, of course, thought can be used to make money. Of course. Right? But then why not just study how to make money? See? But no, I want to actually try to answer that question right here, right now. And that's one thing that only a philosopher can do, okay? And I don't want you to accept this answer. I want you to try to come up with your own, all right? What I feel that philosophy can do really is to try to help people correct their thinking errors, okay? Uh-oh, that sounds like psychology. We'll get there. We'll get there. It can make them more sophisticated in their thinking so they're not as easily fooled. Okay, I think that's another possibility. And this is why it's a shame that most people get their philosophy education from a university, right? Because as a philosopher, I want to point to things around the world. And it's a shame that I'm trying to monetize this channel for that reason, okay? But don't worry, I'll find a way to do it. Because I like to point out stuff that's actually going on and explain that. And explain the, like the con game or whatever that's going on there, okay? But it can do so much more than that. Like what about purpose in your life? Do you have any purpose or meaning in your life? Or is your only purpose and meaning maybe your children? Right? And then we tell all these lies to each other or to ourselves and each other and stuff like that. No, the ancient Greeks said, know thyself, know the universe and the gods. Okay? And this is why we really have to talk about psychology, I think. I believe that psychology and philosophy is absolutely inextricably linked. And if you try to extract the two from each other, you've got garbage. Okay? You have trash on one hand and garbage on the other. Okay? Yes. Well, how are you going to know yourself without psychology? Okay? Well, gee, that sounds pretty important to philosophy, doesn't it, all of a sudden? Sure does, doesn't it? That's right. So we're going to talk about psychology a lot on this channel. All right? Probably not how you were taught about psychology in school. All right? And I want to get too conspiratorial with this because, yeah, I want this channel to be monetized. Okay? But then that's also why I have another channel. If you're curious why I'm kind of hinting that we're constantly being bombarded with BS, well, you're going to have to go somewhere else to find out. You may, and I'll try to help on my other channel a little bit too. All right. Plato. Plato's cave, though. See? Right? Plato's cave. Okay, so yes. Plato talked about it. Plato talked about how the wool's being pulled over your eyes by the fire dancers. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to just go ahead and Google Plato's cave. We call it the allegory of the cave. Okay. But Plato's cave will bring it up. Just Plato's cave. Okay. And I'm sure I'll do a whole video on it. But don't wait for me. Don't wait till then. Go look it up. Okay. All right. Class dismissed for now. Have a good one.